Hey everyone, this is Chris back with the Bimmer Barn, and today, as you could tell by the title, we're gonna be changing the headliner on my E46 wagon. And I'm super excited to announce that we have a sponsor for the video today, yourautotrim.com. They are a headliner supply store online, and they supply some of the best headliner material. And I can show you guys why, because I actually worked with this company years ago when I did the headliner on my 318 Ti. So let's go ahead and take a look at that car first, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're gonna be doing today. So here's my E46 wagon that we're going to be working on, but like I said, Your Auto Trim, I actually worked with them about 4 or 5 years ago when I had to replace the headliner on my race car right here, and you can see this is their suede headliner material right here, and the finish looks awesome. So I did this in the charcoal suede with the foam back that they have on their store, and it was actually my first time doing headliner swaps on a car, so it was a learning experience for me. And at the same time, I also did Max's GTI, and we used the same material on his car as well, and it came out great. The one thing that I will say, and this is probably my own mistake, was that the corners right here, I don't think that I pressed them in enough, and you can just barely tell that they're starting to sag a little bit. And this actually happened like just a couple months after I did the headliner, like really soon afterwards. But since then, this car has been parked inside, outside, drift events, all you can imagine, and the headliner still looks beautiful. It's clean, it's not sagging anywhere, and I would say that I'm super happy with the quality of their products. So that's why I reached out to Your Auto Trim again, and I said, hey guys, I wanna work with you guys. Hopefully we can do something together, and that's why we're making this awesome content here today. Is we're gonna be doing a fabric swap on my BMW, and I think it's gonna look great. We got the platinum finish suede from their site, and this is probably the closest thing that you can get to match the OE silver headliner material that comes on your BMW. There's a couple different flavors or colors, I guess you could say, but if you were to want something that looked a little more OEM and wasn't suede finish, they have those kind of headliners too in tons of different colors. In fact, I actually have some of their sample sheets here to show you. Honestly, I totally forgot that I had these until just that second ago. Let me see if I can show you. So here are the 6 types of suede headliner that they have. This is all their foam backed, and today we have the platinum, which I think is gonna be the closest thing that we could match to the headliner material that we currently have. And in the E36, I actually have the gray. So not the charcoal is really dark. I have the gray headliner on the E36 hatchback. That stuff has been holding up great. But if you have a BMW that has like the tan interior, they also have tan suede, red if you wanna go real crazy, or black, you know, which is a great upgrade as well. But if your car doesn't already have a black headliner, then you're gonna be stuck with all the accessories, the handles and that are still gonna be gray, and it's not gonna look right. So that's why I decided to go with more of an OEM look, and then we're gonna be installing the platinum headliner. If you really wanted to be OEM though, you could go and choose from one of their, I don't know how many this is, tons of colors and textures and finishes that they have. I was originally, I think, gonna go with one of the medium grays or the light grays, because like I said, these sample sheets definitely worth it. I bought them at first, and they were able to help me get the correct color that I needed. But you can definitely just buy for $6, I think one of these costs, and that way you get whatever color you think is gonna match best. So let's go ahead and take a look at the huge roll of headliner material, as well as the glue that they provide to do this job. So here it is, and yes, it is as soft as it looks. I really love this stuff, super plush, and it's foam backed here, so you get more of that like give to the headliner material that makes it just feel that level of softer. Now here is their favorite glue that they recommend, and this is what they sell in their headliner kits. The 393 glue they found over years of testing out different products and getting feedback from customers. They found this to be the best headliner glue because it'll stick and help make adhesion that ensures that you don't get this issue in the future. So really, that's all that you're gonna need in order to do this job. We're gonna start by removing all of the trim pieces inside. So we gotta get the lights, the grab handles, the oh shit handles, and also like the sunroof buttons, the visors. All these things we have to remove in order to get the headliner down. And then also we're gonna be replacing the material that goes on the sunroof lid cover. So that is gonna be a different procedure entirely, but we're gonna cover it in today's video. So stick around, you'll learn something. This This applies to just about all E46s, all BMWs is the same. I mean, it's the same procedure, maybe a little bit different locations for clips and screws. But realistically, the wagon is going to be the easiest because you can pull the headliner board straight out the back. But if you have a coupe or a sedan, you're going to have to remove or at least lay the seat back all the way down and then slide it through the front door. I've found that you can get them out pretty easily without folding them through the front door. And you don't want to fold the headliner because that stiff board there, it'll, you know, show that crease later, and it's going to be hard to put the whole thing back together. It could just crack in half. So anyways, yep, we're going to go ahead and start by removing all the trim pieces, and then we'll get into removing the old headliner material and installing the new stuff. All right, so we're about halfway through removing all the trim pieces. The rear ones are easy on the Touring, and then you've got your C-pillars. Those ones are just held in by a couple clips from the top, and then you slide it up and out. The B-pillars are the ones that are kind of a bitch to get to. So you have to get the trim pieces on the lower door sills, front and back, and then you'll be able to access this big lower trim piece for the pillar. Once you've got that off, you'll have access to the two clips down here that hold it in, and then you'll slide it down and out. But now, of course, the seat belt is stuck in the middle of that contraption. So you want to lift the seat all the way up, and I think it's like a 17 or a 16 millimeter bolt that holds the seat belt to the seat. Take it off so you can get it unrouted, and then you'll be able to pull it out. Obviously, I broke this thing a little bit, so don't be like me, but I think we'll try to fix this up with some epoxy, and we'll be good to go. But yeah, once that comes out, we're gonna go ahead and do the front pillar, and then we have the sunroof switch. And then to get this thing out, it's really just a matter of removing the sunroof seal, and then there's one screw at the very front, and then the whole thing should start to come down pretty easily, just kind of massaging it. So let's go ahead and keep on removing everything. All right, there we are. We've got all of our A, B, and C pillars off. I think I have those correct. I think I know my ABCs. Then we've got the sunroof switch that we were able to get out really nicely. Only broke one clip, and one of them is bent right here. The front pillars came out easily, but this one looks like it was already broken. And also, like I said, one of these right here, well, this one broke, but I fixed it already. And one of these broke, but I fixed it already. And this I'm just fixing with glue. It's plastic, so glue like super glue works really well on these. And then if you want to back it up and support it, you can actually throw some plastic weld or like some epoxy, something hard around that area, and that'll reinforce the crack or the break. So that's what we're gonna do on this corner as well. Probably glue it first, let it dry, and then put some plastic weld to reinforce reinforce it. And I don't think that we're going to be reusing these trim pieces that cover up this little channel here. So we'll just completely go over these, make very small holes, and I think we could probably try spray painting the screws so that they don't look so obvious, you know, on the headliner. Obviously, if we had a black headliner, you wouldn't see these black screws. But since we are doing silver, I think we might try to paint those screws silver, and that'll help them look a little bit better on the headliner here. And it's not really a spot that you can see it. It's more from the outside of the car. But anyways, all these are out. The next thing that we need to do to get the headliner out is going to be releasing this screw. Where is it? There's one screw right there that we have to take out. And then I think that we need to remove, they call this the mucket, which is the little seal for the sunroof. And once we remove all that, I think we should be able to start kind of prying. I think we also have to remove it from the mucket right here. So like the door seals have to come off because they kind of just hold the tension of the sunroof. But this will be something, oh, and also the sun visors, totally forgot about that. So sun visors right here, a couple of screws, and you take those off, the lights, and yeah, then a screw here, and then we'll start pulling it off, guys. All right, so we've got the headliner out, and after a short lunch, we're gonna go ahead and start working on it. So the first step is obviously gonna be to pull all this old material off. Now, the challenges of doing a headliner, really it comes down to corners, indents, and cutouts. So those three things you're gonna find challenge with, because the headliner material doesn't have a lot of stretch in it. So you're gonna wanna start from the center line of your headliner and work outwards. And as you start to press down on the material, it's actually going to pull it in from the sides, and that'll ensure that there's no pressure that's going to be holding this up. So that's really important, I think, for some of these areas. And then when you get to like these holes, you want to go ahead and you'll cut a hole and then peel the material back and glue it on the inside. Now it's going to be a little bit of a challenge in some areas because there are these metal frames. So we're going to probably have to either cut down the material, maybe cut it exactly the length so that it'll just be covered by the light. But we might try initially just cutting out and peeling behind the bottom, and that way, we might just be able to successfully get all those accessories in without risking possibly having the Suede headliner delaminate, come off, or anything in the future. So we're gonna start and just go ahead and pull all this stuff off, and then you're gonna have to clean this off. I'm probably gonna take it outside and brush it all down because there's all this old adhesive and foam, and it's really gross. You can actually probably vacuum, probably that'd be a good idea as well, but I don't wanna get any dust or anything inside the house. So we'll take it outside, brush all the foam off, come back inside, and then we're gonna start with our headliner procedure. All right, so we've got all the old foam vacuumed up, and you wanna make sure to get as much of it as good as possible, especially around the corners and in the little, recesses where adhesion is gonna be really important. It does still have like a little bit of stickiness to it, but I don't want to risk damaging this material here by adding any like dissolvent or any chemical like to get the adhesive off. So this is how I did it on my E36, and that one came out great. So we're gonna go ahead and try it the same way. So yeah, what we're gonna do next is cut the material to length, a little bit extra on the front and back, and it's 5 feet wide, so that's gonna cover just about any headliner I've ever done or seen. They're really not that wide from left to right. So let's cut something to size, and then we'll talk about how we're gonna spray our adhesive down and start to install this headliner. So there it is, our headliner material laid down real nice. And man, when you just start to get real close with this, and it just is an awesome material, guys. I tell you, Suede is definitely the way to go if you're on the fence about it. If you do want something that looks super OEM, you can go for that OEM headliner material. But personally, I love the way the light, comes off of this and how you can see, the stroke of your hand. So there was no doubt in my mind I wanted to do Suede for this car. I think the next owner is gonna enjoy, and you guys hopefully are gonna enjoy as well. So to start, I'm gonna start at the hardest part. This is up here by the visors. There's a little bit of a tear here. This is like cardboard, guys. That's why you wanna be gentle with it. But what you wanna do when you're installing this stuff is you're gonna spray the adhesive on the foam, and you're also gonna spray it on the backing itself. And then you wanna wait just a second to get a little bit tacked up so it starts to dry. And then you wanna put down your headliner material and work from the inside out. And we're gonna try to take care of these corners. That's the only piece that I'm really worried about on this. Take care of this first, and then bring the material out and stretch it over here. You also might run into some creases depending on how you lay out the material. And that's something that you're gonna have to account for. I think I got like 1 or 2 creases on my E36, but they're not even noticeable. They're like in the corners and such. So we're gonna try our best. We're gonna do the hardest part first, and let's see what kind of results we get, and then we'll move towards the back. All right, we've got one side done. You definitely want to work this in small portions because you definitely want to stretch this material a little bit. You can't too much, and you want to get as little creasing as possible. Some of the deeper areas, like the door, like the grab handles right here, those, since the grab handles are going to be installed, they'll hold the tension, so you can allow a little bit of, this raising material here, and you won't notice it once it's fully installed. But when you do get that handle, like I said, it'll keep that material laid down. So we're gonna keep working around. I want to grab this side and just try to bring it and work it outwards, and then the easy part is just gonna be doing the main section. So let's go ahead and keep moving on, and I'll give you guys more tips as I continue to do this myself. Well, there we are. We have fully installed, or at least laid down, our headliner material. We haven't started cutting and trimming yet. I'll show you guys that, there's a couple of hard spots that are hard to do, guys. You're gonna get some creases, and it's gonna happen, unfortunately. I'm not a professional by any means, but I'm happy with the finish that we got out of this thing, especially in the front. Starting with the front, I think, is what you wanna do. But maybe for practice, you should try with the smaller trim pieces, which we haven't done yet. So we're gonna start making our relief cuts cuts now for the handles and for all the trim pieces. We also have to cut for the sunroof right here. And something I want to point out is you really want to make sure that you're using the correct amount of glue. Otherwise it will soak through the fabric and you can get little spots, you know, where you're trying to push and really get a good adhesion, and the glue will actually come through. So I'm hoping that with the handles installed and with the sunroof trim installed, we're not gonna see that, but you know, it's something that you're gonna run into, and hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes and do a great job on your headliner. So like I said, next thing we're gonna do, start doing our relief cuts, cut the trim around the outside, and then we'll move on to the pillars. Well, unfortunately my battery died as I was cutting around the edge here, all the extra fabric pieces, but it's as easy as I said, just, you know, cut around the edges. We've got all the relief cuts, and the smaller holes, you know, I'm just basically cutting a little slit in it, and then the, you know, screws can go around it. But yeah, now we're ready to flip this thing over, take a look at it. We can go ahead and put it inside the car, probably install it, and then we'll move into doing the pillars. All right, moment of truth. Are you guys ready to see what it looks like? Boom, baby. All right, I don't mean to be dramatic or anything, but it looks good. I already went and put the seals for the doors up all around, and also the back seal for the trunk here, so you're not able to see the edges. So it's being held up in position basically where it would usually sit, and it looks great, guys. I really think, you know, when you get it in, that you won't notice any of the, you know, little folds and stuff. Really, if I had any advice, I would say that if you're doing this, just concentrate on getting a really good smooth interior section, and try not to pull the fabric off too hard. Otherwise you might stretch it like in one area up there that I did, but it's not going to be noticeable. And especially around the corners, you're not going to notice the folding, because you never look at these parts anyways. Most people are just going to look at the center, maybe, you know, play with it a little bit, but it does bring to light that, you know, since the fabric is just a little bit different color, especially with the lighting on here and being far away, you can tell that it's a different shade from the original. So we are going to go ahead and replace the fabric on the sunroof, but before we do that, I want to practice on the pillars. So here's the security system cover that goes in the middle of the roof, and obviously it has, you know, fabric from the roof here to match. Now what I did was I went and split the foam from some of my fabric, and I think that this is what we're going to use in order to wrap our old trim pieces such as this. So I'm going to use this as like a test subject, because I think that, you know, you don't want to have too much thickness. See, it comes right off. but look at how thin this material is. You can basically see through it, and that's why I took the foam off of this, because I think it's gonna probably lay on a little bit better and not be so plush. So let's try this out real quick. I'll let you guys watch, and then we'll see what the results are and probably do the rest of the pillars the same way. Oh, and one other recommendation I'd like to make to you guys is while you're cutting off the excess material off the sides, I'd really recommend you do it on the sides and also on the back. But in the front of the car, where you're actually kind of gonna see the headliner, like you can kind of tell right there that this has been cut. So I would say if you can, try to stretch a little extra and wrap it around the back, maybe add some relief cuts and then glue it along the back, kind of like we did for the centerpieces, and that's gonna give it a much cleaner look rather than kind of seeing the foam. But I only think you're gonna see this if you're looking for it, and I don't think it's gonna cause any issues in the future. So yeah, just my little recommendation, my 2 cents. All right, so we've got it wrapped, and I even put the little trim pieces, little grills on the side, and I'm happy with how it came out. Look at this. Looks pretty good, pretty tight up here. I'm gonna tell you that the trick is, you know, like I said, you wanna remove the foam, of course, but in order to get this thing to stick and not bleed through, which was my problem the first time, I only sprayed the base here and then I let it dry for probably a minute or 2 minutes so that it was really like patted down. All the, you know, aerosol had come out of the glue, because you can kind of watch the glue dry and you can see when all the aerosol bubbles come out of it, and then it's more of a matte finish. And that is when I slapped on the material, and then I just wrapped it around the sides, put it upside down, and then I added some extra glue here and used it to just pull it in. And then I cut it with the X-Acto knife, and you cut it around the edges here, and then you wrap it. Basically, if you can see how the original stuff is wrapped, it's really easy to just copy it and do it the same way. So this came out great. Let's go ahead and throw it in the car and see how it looks. Man, it looks great. So I can't wait to use this method on the rest of the pillar pieces, and then we'll finally do the sunroof. So let's go ahead and keep on working. All right, I'm definitely learning as I go here, but check this panel out. Not too bad, not too bad. So again, you know, my recommendation would be to get the easy stuff, you know, the stuff you're gonna see immediately first, and then work towards the corners. This stuff without the foam, it's actually, you can actually stretch it a little bit better. Here I added a lot of glue, so it started coming through, and I think over on this side as well, I wanted the corners to lay down well. Again, I'm learning as I go here, folks, but let's go ahead and fit this inside the car, because I think with the door seals installed, it's not even gonna show those parts. It really doesn't show the edges. So let's go ahead and install this, see what it looks like. Holy Holy cow, that looks good. Wow, man. Oh man, so just a little bit in the corners, guys. You don't even notice that. And like I said, the door seal, see, it really covers up. The door seal here really covers up the rest of the trim. So even if, you know, you get a little bit of glue on the sides, you're not gonna notice it. Man, look at that. Oh man, this is just pumping me up so much. I can't wait to do all the other panels. Let's go ahead and keep rocking. All right, so that was our last piece, the center roof buttons, and I'll give you a quick peek so you can see what it looks like. But the next thing that we have to do now is the sunroof itself, and the trim right here is gonna stay the same color, unfortunately, because it is kind of wrapped really tightly around that muck strip or whatever it's called. But first we're gonna go ahead and slide the door backwards, then we'll have access to the 3 bolts on each side that hold the sunroof glass to the rail. And then once we get the rail out, there's gonna be, I think, 2 or 4 more bolts here that we're going to remove, and then we should be able to disengage the sunroof slider and pop it out of the top, and then we're gonna wrap it and reinstall it. So let's go ahead and do that now. And a little tip for you guys is that these little brackets that hold the sunroof shade on, those are supposed to be reinstalled at a particular position. So what I did was I marked with Sharpie where these things were, and that way we could get it perfectly aligned when we put it back together so that it'll perfectly slide forward and backwards. So now the same procedure goes for the sunroof as well. We're going to reinstall it, but there is a particular alignment that you're supposed to have. I believe it's supposed to sag 1 millimeter in the front and be raised 1 millimeter in the rear, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw that on the screen now for you guys to check out. But let's go ahead and reinstall that sunroof, and then I'll show you guys the final product. All right, so after about a full day's work, it's time to show you guys the final results. All right, so my final thoughts are that this stuff looks great. It feels great to the touch. I think we had like a little spot before where there was a stretch, but it's really not as noticeable as I thought it was. And there are a couple of spots where we got some crinkling or we got maybe a little bit of glue showing through, but these were in the corners where you really don't pay much attention when you're in the car or when your passengers are in the car. So overall, totally worth the money. I think it's about $100 in materials, including the glue, that you're gonna pay for about 6 yards, and that's what I had to use for the touring. And keep in mind that these have a really long roof, so if you had like a coupe or maybe a sedan, you could probably get away with just using 5 yards, but it's nice to have a little bit of wiggle room in case you mess up on a couple pillars like me and you have to redo them. So that being said, in terms of how much time this job took me, I did start a little bit later in the day and I finished pretty late at night, and here it is the next morning, me showing you guys the final product. So I would probably put aside a solid 8 to 10 hours to do this job, and that's why it's pretty expensive when you go somewhere to do a headliner replacement, and they can charge you anywhere from $500 to $1,500 depending on the quality of work and the quality of materials that they're going to supply. But if you want to save your money like me and you want to have that satisfaction of doing something yourself and learning a new skill, you really need to check out yourautotrim.com. They have a huge selection of this headliner material. Like I said, on my hatchback, it's held the test of time great, and here on this car, I'm super pleased with the results. I like the trick of removing the foam for the pillars. I think that made it really easy to get the pillars wrapped real tight, and you definitely have to do it for like the sunroof button panel, and then for like the security and the sunroof shade and all that, because if you were going to use the foam backed headliner everywhere, it would definitely come out a little too plush and then maybe cause some issues, and maybe long term might in some of those tight spaces it might cause some issues for you. So guys, I'm super pleased with the results. If I had any tips, it would be to really let the glue sit and tack up before you apply your headliner material. Be real gentle with it and try not to stretch the material, otherwise it can delaminate or you can cause some stretch marks. And worry about getting the middle done and nicely squared away before you work out to the edges. And if you get a couple creases on the edges, it's not a big deal, guys. Nobody's gonna notice this stuff, and it's not gonna cause any performance issues just to have a couple creases. If anything, it's better to have a couple creases, in my opinion, rather than trying to overstretch the material, because then you're gonna risk it peeling back and shrinking on itself in the future, which is not what you want. So Guys, I'm super pleased. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comments down below. So that's gonna conclude our video for today. I think the car is 100% dialed now. The only things left to do on the E46 realistically is to maybe give it a good shampoo and carpet cleaning. Same thing with those floor mats that we just bought. I wanna clean those up and throw them in the car, but otherwise this thing is in tip-top condition now. And oh, one more thing, I do have to get a gas cap because the one on the car is aftermarket and it's currently leaking. Now that we fixed the TMTL pump, it's showing me that we have a minor gas cap leak. So I have to change that as well. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Go check out the sponsor, yourautotrim.com. I'm not just shouting them out because, you know, they sent me some free material, but I'm a huge fan of the materials that they provide and also the great customer support. And they've been in the business for years and years, so they know what they're talking about. So if you have any questions about what you want to do with your headliner, give them a call. You'll actually be able to talk to someone on the phone who's going to know what they're talking about and be able to help you get set up to do the headliner on your BMW. So leave a like or a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And as always, I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see you next time.